tonight, state police say the owners of a Dauphin County staple are at the center of a murder and attempted suicide. The victim, Taryn Morgan, who you see behind me, is the woman troopers say was killed by her husband.
She was everybody's teacher, everybody's coach, everybody's neighbor, and she died in her own home, at the hands of the one person who was supposed to be her safe place. Let me tell you something. When a community loses someone the way Dauphin County lost Taryn Morgan, it doesn't just grieve. It goes quiet. Because people don't have the words for it. They don't have the framework for it. Because this wasn't supposed to happen here. And it definitely wasn't supposed to happen to her. Taryn Morgan was a mother of 3, a wife, a business owner, an agricultural education teacher with more than 2 decades poured into the same school, the same students, the same hallways. She was a cheer coach for kids who were barely old enough to tie their own shoes. She was the kind of woman that a whole town builds itself around without even realizing it. Until she's gone. And she is gone. Shot dead in her own home. By her husband. Make it make sense. In every home, behind every closed door, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of domestic crime and the relationships that turn deadly. If you're drawn to real stories, powerful insights, and the shadows most people avoid, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and step into the whispers they never wanted you to hear. Carsonville is a small, tucked-away community in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania. The kind of place where people know each other's names, where a local business feels like an extension of the neighborhood itself, and where news travels fast, especially the kind nobody wants to hear. Taryn had roots deep in that soil. She taught agricultural education at Upper Dauphin Area High School for over 20 years. 20 years of students who called her their favorite teacher. 20 years of labs and lessons and a classroom that felt like it actually mattered. She wasn't just filling a seat. She was shaping lives. And outside that classroom, she gave even more. She coached the Lykens Little Tigers Association cheer squad. She showed up for kids who had nothing to do with her job description. She just showed up. That was who Taryn was. Then there was the Carsonville Hotel. Taryn and her husband, Dennis Morgan, purchased it in 2018. It became their shared project, their investment in the very community that had become the backdrop of their lives. For people in that area, the Carsonville Hotel wasn't just a building. It was theirs. It carried their name. It held their story. From the outside, the Morgans looked like exactly what a small town roots for. A couple building something together. A family with a future. Girl. If only the outside told the whole story. Because in 2020, everything shifted. Dennis Morgan was diagnosed with synovial sarcoma. Now, if you've never heard of that, that's not an accident. It's rare. It's a cancer of the soft tissues, the kind that wraps itself around the structures that support your bones and your organs. It's aggressive. It's complicated to treat. And for the person living with it, and for the people who love that person, it changes everything. Nobody talks about what a terminal diagnosis does to a household. Not really. People say, they fought so hard, and they were so brave. But behind that language is something much messier. Fear, uncertainty, grief that starts before anyone has even died, relationships that get pulled in directions they were never built to handle. Dennis and Taryn had been living under that weight for years by the time that Thursday afternoon came. Moving on, here's what the community knew. A couple dealing with hardship, a husband who was sick, a wife who kept going, kept teaching, kept coaching, kept the hotel running, kept her family together. People in Carsonville saw Taryn, and they saw strength. What was happening inside that house on Carsonville Road? No one can say for certain. But what we know is that by the time Pennsylvania state troopers got that call on a Thursday afternoon, it was already too late. The address came in around 2:15 p.m., 90-something Carsonville Road. A gunshot victim. Crime. 94 Castle Hill Road, 94 Carsonville. Gunshot victim. State police responded to the 90 block of Carsonville Road to find Taryn Morgan dead inside her home. She had been shot. Her husband, Dennis Morgan, had then turned the gun on himself. He was rushed to Penn State Hershey Medical Center, but troopers said from the beginning that he was not expected to survive. Just like that, on an ordinary Thursday, in the middle of the afternoon, in a house on a road that her neighbors had driven past 1,000 times without a second thought. Period. That's how fast it happens. That's how little warning there is. That's why cases like this one matter. The people who lived around them were in disbelief. In the 7 years I lived here, I've never heard of anything like this happening in the community. We are all in shock, like in disbelief. And that reaction, that stunned silence that spreads through a small town, that is the story. Because Taryn wasn't a stranger. She wasn't someone people passed on the street and barely recognized. She was woven into the fabric of that place. And pulling her out of it left a hole that nobody knew how to look at. When state troopers arrived at that house on Carsonville Road, there was no mystery about what had happened, no unknown suspect, no missing person report, no cold trail to follow. The scene told its own story, and it was a devastating one. Taryn Morgan was dead. Dennis Morgan was clinging to life, rushed out of that house and into the trauma system at Penn State Hershey Medical Center. Troopers confirmed early on that they were not looking for anyone else. This was not a break-in. This was not a stranger. This was a husband and a wife, and only one of them was leaving that house alive. And that right there, that is what makes domestic violence cases so different from anything else in the true crime space. There is no whodunit. There is no mystery to solve in the traditional sense. The horror is not in the unknown. The horror is in how known everything is. The home, the relationship, the years, the life built together, all of it sitting in the same room as the violence. Investigators worked to piece together exactly what led to that moment. With Dennis in critical condition and not expected to survive, there would be no testimony from him, no courtroom explanation, no moment where someone looks across a room and answers for what they did. The answers, if they were coming at all, were going to have to come from somewhere else. What they had was a timeline, a sick man, a quiet road, a gun, and a woman who had given everything to everyone around her, and still couldn't be protected inside her own walls. Anyways, the community didn't wait for answers before it started to grieve. The Upper Dauphin Area School District sent word to families the same day, a confirmation nobody wanted to read. Their agricultural education teacher, the one who had stood in front of their kids for over 20 years, was gone. The school released a statement, and the words they chose said everything. This is an incredibly painful moment for our students, staff, and entire Trojan family. Words cannot fully capture the loss. That's a school district trying to hold itself together in real time, trying to find language for something that has no good language. And the people in that community, they felt every word of it. I heard she's a really nice person and a great teacher. I know a lot of my friends have children that they know the teacher. I'm sure that they're all shocked. I pity the seniors right now thinking they lost their teacher. The seniors. Let that land for a second. These are young people, 18 years old, maybe, who were weeks or months away from walking across a stage. And the teacher who had been part of their school experience, who had shown up for them year after year, was just gone. Not from illness, not from an accident, gone because of something that should never have happened. The Lykens Little Tigers Association, the cheer organization where Taryn had coached, remembered her publicly. They called her a teacher, a role model. They talked about the mark she left on young students and the parents who watched their kids grow under her guidance. Oh, so now the community is supposed to figure out how to explain this to children, to kids who looked up to her, to families who trusted her with their little ones every practice, every game day, every performance? Like, that weight doesn't fall on just one person. It spreads. It reaches into classrooms and living rooms and car rides home from school where a parent has to find words they don't have. The Carsonville Hotel went quiet, too. A business that had been a community fixture, that had Taryn and Dennis's names and energy attached to it. Suddenly it was just a building with a story that nobody knew how to tell yet. People who lived on that road, in that township, in that county, they kept coming, back to the same word: shock. We never expected, never at all. This is shocking to us both. It was a shock, and very big shock. And that's the thing about domestic violence that the statistics don't fully capture. It's not just the victim who is harmed. It's the entire web of people connected to her. Her 3 children, her students, her cheer kids, her neighbors, her colleagues. Every person who had ever stood next to Taryn Morgan and felt better for it. Every single one of them was changed by what Dennis did in that house.
The victim is a mother of 3, an educator, a business owner, a wife. And this is a tight-knit community, so today, people I spoke to said it's devastating.
94 Carsonville Road, 94 Carsonville.
A tragic call for EMS.
Gunshot victim.
That victim, Taryn Morgan, according to state police. Troopers say they found her dead in her home, shot by her husband.
In the 7 years I lived here, I've never heard of anything like this happening in the community. We are all in shock, in disbelief.
Taryn was the co-owner of the Carsonville Hotel, an agricultural education teacher at Upper Dauphin Area High School, where she taught students for more than 2 decades. The school is remembering their lost educator, writing in a statement.
I heard she's a really nice person and a great teacher.
I know a lot of my friends have children that don't know the teacher, and I'm sure that they're all shocked. I pity the seniors right now thinking they lost the teacher.
The loss extending far beyond the classroom. She also was a cheer coach for the Lykens Little Tigers Association. It remembered her as, quote, an incredible mentor, teacher, role model, supporter, and bright light to so many of our young students and parents.
24-2. Looks like 2 patients. We're working on getting more. Copy that.
State troopers say her husband, Dennis Morgan, pulled the gun on himself. He was rushed to the hospital, but is not expected to survive.
We never expected. Never at all. This is shocking to us both.
It was a shock. A very big shock.
There was no arrest. There was no trial. Dennis Morgan died from his self-inflicted gunshot wound. The legal system never got the chance to weigh in. There was no courtroom, no sentencing, no moment of formal accountability. Just a case that closed not with a verdict, but with a second death. And for the people who loved Taryn, that absence of process is its own kind of pain. Because a trial, as hard as it is, as re-traumatizing as it can be, gives survivors and community members a place to put their grief. It gives them a timeline, a structure, a moment where someone, somewhere, says out loud that what happened was wrong and that it mattered. None of that came for Taryn's family. None of that came for her kids, for her students, for her colleagues who sat with the loss and had no formal space to lay it down. Moving on, but not without sitting with that for a moment, because the absence of justice is not the same as the absence of accountability. What Dennis Morgan did was documented. It was investigated. It was confirmed. And the community's response, the grief, the statements, the public remembering of who Taryn was, that became its own kind of record. Here is what Taryn Morgan left behind. 3 children who grew up watching their mother pour herself into everything she touched. A classroom full of students, 20+ years of them, who learned not just agriculture, not just science, not just curriculum, but what it looks like when a grown woman shows up for you consistently, reliably, and with her whole heart. A cheer squad full of little kids who thought she would always be on that sideline. A community that built part of its identity around the businesses she kept, the spaces she filled, and the quiet, steady presence she carried into every room she walked into. That is not a small legacy. That is a life that rippled outward in every direction, and it was cut short inside the one place it should have been safest. Let me tell you something. We talk about domestic violence like it only lives in certain kinds of homes, like there are warning signs that everybody missed, like if you just look closely enough you can see it coming from a mile away. But Taryn's story pushes back on all of that. Because from the outside, this was a couple managing hardship with grace, a sick husband, a devoted wife, a family holding together under real pressure. And still, the outcome was this. That does not mean we ignore the illness. It does not mean we use it as an explanation that erases what Dennis did. A diagnosis is not a permission slip. Suffering is not a justification. And Taryn's life, her full, generous, community-rooted life, deserved to continue. Period. But it does mean we have to be honest about something. Illness changes people. Illness changes households. And when a household is changing in ways that feel out of control, whether that's fear, whether that's grief, whether that's something darker taking hold, there have to be places to go. Resources, conversations, support systems that catch people before something irreversible happens. For Taryn, and for so many women like her, those systems were not enough, or they weren't accessed in time, or nobody around her knew to look. Girl, that is the part that keeps you up at night. Because Taryn was not invisible. She was not isolated. She was one of the most connected people in her community. She was surrounded by people who cared about her, and she still could not be reached in time. So what do we do with that? I think we start by refusing to let her be reduced to the way she died. Taryn Morgan was a teacher, a mother, a coach, a business owner, a neighbor, a woman who gave decades of her life to a community that is still feeling the weight of losing her. That is who she was. That is the story that deserves to be told first and told loudest. And then we take the rest of it seriously. We check on the people around us who are carrying things quietly. We ask the questions that feel awkward to ask. We stop assuming that because someone looks like they are holding it together, they actually are. Because sometimes the people who hold everything together for everyone else, they are the ones with nobody holding things together for them. Taryn deserved better. Her children deserved better. Her students deserved better. Her community deserved better. I said what I said. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. It is free, it is confidential, and it is available 24 hours a day. Rest easy, Taryn. You mattered more than words can hold.